Hello everyone. This week we're going to talk about some fundamentals of organization. So it never fails that when I do these seminars and when we go through these programs, one of the biggest areas of struggle is organization. And luckily it's one of the areas that we can make the biggest improvement the quickest. And so we know that we've all probably gone through some sort of organization classes, seminars, we've read books about organization. And all I can really tell you is that organization just really boils down to your decision to be organized. And there's tons of tools out there, and we'll talk about some of the tools themselves. But really, in reality, you just have to make the decision that this week, this month, this year, you're going to be organized. And it's like anything else. You have to, whether you set daily reminders, whether you have somebody remind you, whether you're using some mechanism, you have to build the consistency of organization. And just as we walk through all the mindset things, and we did 20 days worth of mindset, we did 20 days worth of communication, we've done 20 days worth of habit building, the same goes for organization. And so whatever we decide that we're going to try to implement, whatever we try to add to our mix of organization, we have to understand that we're going to be 40 to 60 days out before we're really comfortable with it and before we feel like it's actually working. In many cases, what happens is we start out with a new organizational system, a new CRM, a new electronic method, whether we're using Outlook or whether we use hard copy, whatever it is, and we use it sporadically and it falls off, and then we say, well, it didn't really work anyway, and we've never really dedicated the time and effort to be consistent at it. Because as we move forward, the more consistent we are at everything that we do. Everything in this program requires consistency. So these are all time-tested principles that we talk about. They're organized into a very building block style manner, and every time we add something to it, we just have to understand that we have to start that new habit cycle. We have to understand that each 20 days is critical in understanding that having our brain recognize that this is a new pattern in our life, and then having our brain predict that pattern, and then having that pattern become innate and become an actual habit that we do inherently. And so we're really looking at 60 days before we can feel comfortable with what we're doing. And too many times we add these things in and we say, well, it takes longer than the old way, or it takes longer than not doing it at all. And that's just because we're so comfortable with the old method and we don't allow the new method to become a habit. And so we just need to understand that we have to invest a minimum of 40 days, ideally 60 days into anything that we try. And organization is going to be more technical for some people than others. I still use a hard copy calendar, and there's a few reasons for that. My brain is really triggered kinesthetically, meaning the act of writing things down really helps me in remembering them and solidifying them in my brain. So I actually like writing things down in my hard copy calendar. I don't have to log on to get to it, and I know a lot of you do stuff from your phone. I don't happen to do that, and there's no right or wrong way other than we have to understand that we have to have our organization in place. And so, what is it to be organized? When we talk about our organization, well, what does it really mean to be organized? And what we're really looking for is to be intentional with our time. We're looking to be the ones driving the car as opposed to being a passenger in the car. Because when we're a passenger in the car, we don't get to determine where we slow down, where we speed up, what detours we take, when we stop for gas, when we stop for potty breaks, when we stop for McDonald's. When we are driving the car, we're in control of all that. The more planned out that we are in driving that car, the more we know ahead of time what should happen and what's going to happen, the more efficient we are. The more efficient we are, the more work, the more content we fit into the same amount of time. The more content we fit in the same amount of time, the more productive we are, the more results we achieve. And so organization is really just meant to do more in less time. If you're working 40 hours and you're producing a certain amount, and you don't want to work 40 hours, you want to work 30 hours. Becoming more organized allows you to do the same amount of work you were doing in 40 hours in 30 hours. If you want to double your production without doubling the amount of time that you work, organization helps you be intentional in how you get those results in less time. And so really, first and foremost, and the biggest principle I think determines how all of the rest of your organization goes. And it all starts with time blocking. Understanding as I look at my week, what tasks I have to complete at what times, which means that I time block out for everything. And I include time blocking for catch up or miscellaneous, because in a perfect week, I could schedule myself 7 in the morning till 6 at night, and I could have each hour time blocked out for all of my important tasks. But if something happens, then the rest of that time blocking from that point on gets thrown off. And so I think it's really important that you sort of time block in half days, allowing some open time. So if something goes wrong, if something takes longer, it goes into your open time and doesn't detract from another task. Then you have a secondary task that you can do if nothing goes wrong. That's a non-critical task. And so I think you break that down into half days. Okay, so what does that mean? What are my tasks that I do? And there's no right and wrong answer for that, because each of us is so individual. Each of us is so good at different things and struggle with other things. Each of us has different focus. So what that means is you just have to understand what your strengths are and what you need to do, and just schedule yourself to do those tasks. There's no right or wrong day, other than if you journal and you understand what works, you understand that if you're going to do cold calling, 7 o'clock in the morning is not a good time to do that. If you're going to call referral partners, 6 o'clock at night is probably not a good time to do that. So just understand that there's some efficiency that you will have to learn along the way. And as you do that, you modify your time blocking. But your whole week should be time blocked. And you should have pockets of that time in there that are open for either catching up on something that got behind because something went wrong, or you can fill it with a non-critical task. But either way, you should have your important task time blocked, and you should have open time to it's sort of like your elective class in high school, where you had all your core classes, but you had that one that you kind of got to pick, and it was a little bit of a free hour, and you got to catch up on stuff if you needed to. Second, the time blocking should be tied to your goals. And if you guys haven't set goals yet, there's no shame in that. We're going to do some goal setting later on, because January 1st shouldn't be the only time you set a goal. Time is linear. It's not cyclical. When we look at the calendar and January 1st, we start a cycle. Well, the reality of it is time is linear. January 1st is no different than the 2nd, no different than the 5th. They are the first day in the next step of our life. And so we should never be afraid to reset goals or set goals if you hadn't set them. But those goals should be broken down. Your big goal should be broken down into a monthly goal, should be broken down into a weekly goal, should be broken down into a daily goal, should be broken down into hourly time blocking. So we take our big goals, whatever it is, whether it's income or number of transactions, divide that by 12, divide that by weeks, divide that by time blocking hours. And then, so that way we understand what the most critical tasks are in order to achieve the annual goal. And then we break those up into small chunks, whether it's on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, that we need to do to accomplish that big goal. And so time blocking is the first principle. The second principle is really goal setting and how I get to what I put into those times of the day. But our day should be very intentional. Our day should be very, very structured, because if not, what happens is we're the passenger of that car, and then we start getting lost in emails, we start getting lost in phone calls. If social media marketing is part of your day and you work social media and you need to reach out to people who respond to your posts, if you don't have that time blocked, what's going to end up happening is you get on there to answer one comment, and an hour and a half later you realize that you've gone down some rabbit hole that's not even related to what you're trying to accomplish anymore. So if we time block it and we say that every day from whatever time to whatever time is when we do social media, then you jump on there and you understand that the important thing is to make your post, is to make the meme, to post the meme, to answer comments on your posts. Then as you run out of time, you're like, great, my social media time is up. I have to go on to my next task, and you don't go down that rabbit hole. You don't lose all that time. Okay? The next principle really is, what tools do you have in place? Obviously, you have to have a calendar. It's a most important tool in getting time block. Could be hard copy, it could be electronic, it could be your own CRM system, it could be Outlook, it could be, whatever system you need, as long as there is a system to control and track and record your time blocks, your meetings, your calendar, basically. We need all the associated tools for the tasks that we're completing. So, obviously if we're going to have social media time blocked, we have to have a Facebook account, we have to have an Instagram account, we have to have a LinkedIn account. If we're going to be sending out emails or we're going to be following up with clients, we need to have some sort of CRM, and we'll have a week where we just do nothing but talk about CRMs. Your company probably has a CRM, but you want your own, and there's some free versions like on HubSpot. There's some that are very, very inexpensive that are a little bit more robust, that do a little bit more for you, but you have to make sure that you have your own CRM to capture all of these leads that you're bringing in, because if it's our goal to meet 300 people a year, we sort of have to have a great way and somewhere to put them, and then we need something to remind us that this person said to call in October, this person said that they were going to be ready to buy in August, this person said their lease at their apartment is up in September and they want to start looking for houses at that point. So we just have to understand that this calendar and this CRM are critical to follow up, right? If you're going to send out emails, you have to have an email account. And so I know this sounds super basic, but as you look at that time block and as you look at your critical tasks on the checklist, you have to ask yourself, do I have all of the tools that I need to complete each one of these tasks, right? So if you're going to do an open house, you need signs, you need marketing materials. Do I have that stuff in place? Because you don't want to have an open house on Saturday and Friday night be worried about going to Kinko's, creating some sort of flyer. You want all this stuff made and ready to go. And that's all part of your organization. Is as you go down your checklist, as you look at the checklist and you see every single one of those items, you have to ask yourself, what do I need to be fully prepared to complete this task? What tools do I need to fully complete this task? And then make sure that all of those tools are complete and ready. If it's a flyer, that flyer should be ready, with the exception of putting in the address, putting in the date and time. But all of the information about you, the template of the flyer itself should be made. So all you're doing is plugging in property information and date and time. That's one example, but it's just an example of the tool that you need, one of the tools that you need to do the open house, right? If you're going to do cold calling, if you're going to call past clients, do you have your list ready? What are you going to say? Is your script ready? Are you proficient at the script? And so these are each of the sort of organizational tools that I want you to go down the checklist, and for every single item on the left side of that checklist, I want you to ask yourself, what tools do I need, and are they ready? As a tool, a script is a tool. The script isn't ready until you're ready. The script isn't ready until you can have that script memorized and you can talk about that script like it's conversation. And a couple weeks ago, we did an example of that when we did the six-figure introductions. And we started having these questions that we ask every single person, right? We remember what they are? They're geography, interest, and occupation. And I know those questions and I have them rehearsed so well that as I'm speaking to someone, they just sound like conversation. And so we start off with, right? We sort of start off with this time block theory. And then we have to have some sort of calendaring method to support that. And then within the time blocks, we're going to add tasks that are critical tasks to achieving the results we want. And each of those tasks has an associated tool. So for this week, really, I want you to just go down and I want you to talk about maybe what your 2 or 3 or 4 most critical tasks are, what the tools are that you need to complete those tasks, what sort of calendaring you're using, and how and when you're going to time block those critical tasks. At some point, we want to continue adding to it, but 3 or 4 right now, if we do nothing this week but get our top 3 or 4 critical tasks time blocked and on the calendar and organized in some sort of calendar method, and we understand what tools we need to complete those tasks and we have those tasks ready, that's a huge step for this week, and it's a huge win for you organization-wise. So don't ever forget that obviously the biggest portion of what we do is being a better version of us. And a better version of us is being more intentional with our time. Not letting the world, not letting customers, not letting vendors, not letting referral partners, not letting people determine the value of our time. We're the one that places the value on our time, and based on that value is how we prioritize time blocking it. So if you guys have an amazing week, I will be back again tomorrow morning with the morning videos. I skipped today because it was Easter, so happy Easter for those of you who celebrate Easter. For those of you who don't, I hope you're having a relaxing, peaceful, amazing Sunday.